I was trying to find a mashal to try and explain the feelings that I have to have the schus to stand here by Siyum Harambam in Melbourne, Australia. I was thinking perhaps we all, some of us more, some of us less, have been on airplanes. You take a little child, and in the olden days, the cockpit was open. Perhaps sometimes a little child feels, I wish one day I would be able to fly that jumbo. An array of buttons and lights, exciting. But that mashal won't do justice to the way I feel, because I was here present at the first Siyum Harambam in Melbourne, Australia. We had the schus then, and Birishus, the Anhola of YC, Yeshiva, Yosef Yitzchak Lubavitch, Tachas Nesius, Chakad Nur Lubavitch, that invested so heavily in our education, and Rabbi Grono of Shalom made us recognize it. When we were mucking around, he called us and he said, "Do you know how much money I'm spending on your education in the Sifta?" Now when I run Mazdis myself, I understand what he meant and the pain he had, that we weren't using every single second. But when the takana of Rambam came and we were in Masifta, obviously we joined the takana. Can't say we understood every halacha, but a chassid has to learn. Three prakim Rambam. Those that were not so familiar with the way the Lubavitch Rebbe works, we're hoping deep down secretly, the discussions in the Shalashudas, in the Mincha Ma'ariv, and Yeshiva was, will this continue more than 1 year? Because who can keep up with learning three prakim Rambam every single day? My father, Zol Gesund Sein, gave a daily shir in the Koilel, three prakim Rambam. And indeed in the Siyum that took place by Chassidish Fabreng in Yud Aleph Nissen, that first year, my father said the Hadran. And then the Rebbe said we have to organize Siyumim. I don't know, I'm not so versed in the annals of history of the Melbourne community, but I can tell you that in my memory, etched in my memory, is that first Siyum where you had the entire gamut of Rabbonim of Melbourne, the Melech Ashkenazi, and Rabbi Branok, and Rabbi Groner, and Rabbi Gutnik, and the Kailo Beis HaTalmud, and names and peoples and faces, of course, of Yosef Shia Hecht, who gave a way longer than expected Pilpul and Chelik Zayim. Mashpisam Shalei Yezukui is my cousin, so I give you a shout out. And it was a Siyum lichveida ligmara shalteira lichveida shalteira. It was unbelievable, impossible to fathom. And then the Rebbe came and said we have to do every year, and every year a Siyum. But to think, little kid, from my eyes, that one day I'll have the schus to come back here, and 40 years later to be able to address the Siyum Harambam in Melbourne. This is, I really don't have words for it, but it's an incredible schus, and privilege, and honor, and tainuk, delight. So let me share Ischatshus. Everybody reads the Parshas HaShavua every single week. I've never heard anybody question, oh, again, Bereshis bara Elokim? Because every time you read the words Bereshis bara Elokim, there's a new, you are new, there's a new understanding, there's a depth. There's chidushim, alachas kama v'kama when we read the Rambam. Every single time, there's something else that grabs your attention. And the Rebbe indeed said that every day, in every cycle, one should focus on a few, on a halacha or two, to learn bi'iyun. So a halacha that jumped out at me this year of all years is the following. The end of Hilchos Sanhedrin. Osur la'adam linhag bisrara ala tzibur uvegasus haruach. A person is not allowed to act in a way of aggrandizement, in a way of arrogance, when he has a position of authority over the community. Ela ba'anova v'yira, with humility and with reverence. V'chol parnas hamatil ema yisera ala tzibur shalei l'shem shamayim. Any leader of the community, the word parnas for us Chassidim, if we translate it like the Targum Yedison says, the word parnas on the pasuk in Zechariah, which speaks about the shleishes haroyim, the shepherds, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, he calls them Yas Parnasaya, the Parnasim. So if you're a shepherd and a leader of the Jewish people, with Ema Yisera, with undue dread that you position yourself over the community, Shalei l'shem shamayim, not for the sake of heaven. Nanash, God forbid, gets punished and he won't have children to Talmidei Chachamim. V'chein, also le'lineg b'hem kalos reish al chabisha me'amaret, you can't mistreat or treat lightheartedly or without the proper respect even those that are ignorant of Torah. V'lo yafsiya al roshei ha'makodesh, don't tread on the heads of the holy people. Don't think you can step all over Jewish people, even though they're hedyotis, they're simpletons, ushvalim, and lowly people. And here the Rambam interjects. You think they're low? You think they're hedyotis? B'nei Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, they're the children of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. V'tzivos Hashem, they're the legions of Hashem, Shahitzi me'eretz Mitzrayim v'kayach godel v'yod chazaka, that Hashem took out from Egypt with an outstretched arm. And these are the parshas we're reading today, these weeks. The Sevel Torah Chatzibro Mason Kamesh Rabbi, you have to bear the burden of the Bnei Yisrael, just like Moshe. Shenemar boy kasher yisa ha'im el sayonek, just like it says that the one who's taking care of the suckling of the baby, bears and carries, as Moshe Rabbeinu did Am Yisrael. V'halei oim, and Moshe was commanded v'atzave es sheftechem z'azara l'dayin sheyispel es hatzibor. Tzei l'mad Moshe Rabbeinu shekol haneviyah. If you want to know how you have to treat the Jewish people, learn from Moshe Rabbeinu's attitude. Kivan sheshlocha HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'Mitzrayim v'nema v'yitzavu b'nei Yisrael. Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, you're instructed about the Bnei Yisrael to do what? Omru mipi HaKabbalah, Torah Shabbat Bet tells us, she'amar lehem l'Moshe L'Aaron al menosh sheyiyu mekalalim eschem v'seiklim eschem ka'avanim. If you think you're going to be a leader in the Jewish people to get covered, come again. You're getting the wrong job. Maybe become the head of Tesla, but not the head of the Jewish people. Moshe was told, al menosh sheyiyu mekalalim eschem v'seiklim eschem, they're going to beat you, they're going to stone you. And yet, treat them kasher yisa ha'im el sayonek, treat them tenderly and lovingly, just like you would carry a little baby. But where's the bucket of the Rambam, first of all? The Rebbe requested Marmekhemis for the Rambam because Rambam didn't give us Marmekhemis. So we know where to find where it says how a dayan has to act. There's a Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Ches. And we know where it says, Amnosh Shiu Seiklim and Mekalim Eschem, there's a Shmeis Rabbah, there's a Medrash Rabbah, and Parshas Vayera. But where does this, almost like a Shabbos Shuvah drasha, come into the Rambam? You should know. B'nei Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. Tzivos Hashem, Sheis HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where does it say it? In Halacha. So there was today we have the Frankel Rambam, and we have Google. And we have Hebrew books. There's a Pirush on Chesha Mishpat called, let me get it right, because it's not the Pirush I look in every week, or every day. Eirach Mishpat was a Yid Litvish Goy, whose name was Rab Shimon Dovber Anolik, passed away in 1906. He wrote a Sefer Chesha Mishpat. And he asked the question, where's the mucker of the Rambam? Mela, the first part, the last part we find, but where's the mucker for the Tzivos Hashem and Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov? And he brings a Zohar, that the Zohar says, Eile Roshei Beis Avosam, that Moshe Rabbeinu is told by Hashem, you're looking at the Jews now, the way they are in Avodah Kasha, they're beaten down, they're downtrodden. Don't look at them that way. Eile Roshei Beis Avosam, these are going to be the leaders of the Jewish people. Look at them with their capacity. Look at them the way they're going to be in their potential. Ulai is up there, maybe he says, that could be a shtickle gang for a Rambam. He says, in Erech Mishpat that the Psukim themselves give out this far, but I don't want to go into it for lack of time. I want to ask conceptually, even if we find a mocker that the Rambam founded in Psukim, it's not coming from halacha. The Rambam injected a musar vart, a perspective vart, in the middle of a halacha, which is a halacha hilchas anedin. So the Rebbe has given us perspective in two other places where we can see what this Rambam is supposed to tell us. We all know the halacha that we've learned it 45 times, that Moshe Rabbeinu made the first Parah Adumah, Ezra made the second one, and then subsequently there were 7 more, and the 10th one, Ha'asiris, Yasser Melech HaMoshiach Meheira Yigala Omer Ken Yirasa. The 10th Parah Adumah Mashiach will make. May he come speedily, may he be revealed speedily. Omer Ken Yirasa. And the Rebbe in a Sicha, we put the Sichas, the Chavches, Pashas Chukas, explains, and the nugget there is that the Rambam is telling us a halacha about Mashiach. The Rambam is telling us that there's a Mishnah which speaks about how many paradumas, that's true, but why is that negel a halacha? Because there's a halacha called Misha'ena Mechaka Lebiyasei, somebody who doesn't wait for Mashiach is missing the whole point. And so when you mention a halacha that mentions Mashiach, if you're a person who really, really cares and waits and yearns and pines away from Mashiach, you can't hold yourself back. You mention Mashiach, you say, Meheira Yigala Omer Ken Yirasa, I hope he's coming soon, Amen. The Rambam doesn't have to say it every time he mentions Mashiach, because once he told us that, we know that that's the way he has to live. That also is Negel HaHalacha. Mechaka Lebiyasei means not just conceptually, when you're meditating, when you're talking about, I wish this, I wish that, but actually when you come across a concept, when you see something that makes you think about Mashiach, immediately there's a Mechaka Lebiyasei, you wait for his coming. When you speak about a Yid, and you call him because you want to emphasize, as the Rambam, I want to emphasize to you what kind of Yidden I'm talking about. Like this, we would all say, the Rambam was talking about people, the Amaretz in those days. The Amaretz in those days were Geschmack and Yidden. They were keeping Torah mitzvahs, they didn't know, they were Poshet Yidden. Today, the Rambam's not talking about today. The Rambam says, no, I want to tell you who I'm talking about. Hedyoitis u'shvalim, whatever that means in any generation. But the Rambam just called the Jews Hedyoitis u'shvalim. Is that the way you talk about a Yid? Is that the way you talk about a Yid? And the Rebbe gives us a Chiddush in Hilchos Deis. The Rebbe tells us that the Rambam speaks about a Chacham. The Rambam says that a Chacham einoi Mesaper b'shevach chaveiroi v'loi b'gnusei klal. Not just a regular Jew is not allowed to talk Lashon Hara, that's a halach, you're not allowed to talk Lashon Hara. And we know that Alter Rebbe says you're not even allowed to even think bad about another Yid. Like a Machshavas Avodah Zarah says Alter Rebbe, to think bad about another Yid, for sure not to talk. But the halach is you're not allowed to talk Lashon Hara. Says the Rambam that a Chacham does the exact opposite. Medaber b'shevach haveiroi, he speaks about the praiseworthiness of his fellow. V'loi b'gnusei klal, doesn't speak about his downtroddenness, about his negativity. Comes the Rambam here and he teaches us a halacha. I'm going to talk to you about Hedyoitis u'shvalim and the halacha. I need to tell you. I can't butter it up. I can't tell you they're nice. Sheni Yid. He's not a Sheni Yid. He's a Hedyot and a Shofal, arguably, objectively. But hang on a second. I want to tell you, Medaber b'maylas chaveiroi. I'm going to tell you a halacha l'maisa. The way you look at him is it's Bnei Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. He's Tzivayis Hashem shahitzi meretz Mitzrayim b'keach godel v'yod chazaka. And if you want to know how a parnas looks at the tzibur, a parnas is a raya. We're all very familiar with the concept of Raya because of Moshe Raya, the qualifications of Moshe Rabbeinu. To be the leader of the Jewish people is he's a shepherd. Raya Mehemna says the Zohar in every generation there's a Moshe Rabbeinu and his quality is a Raya Naaman. First of all, before we get to the Zohar, Raya Emunah, a faithful shepherd. The Rebbe of our generation, the Rebbe who gave us Takanas Harambam, this is the way he looked at Eden. Mr. Rohr, George Rohr, famously came to the Rebbe. He thought he was going to get a beautiful smile from the Rebbe by telling him that even as a lay leader, a businessman in the Lincoln Square, in the wherever synagogue he was on Fifth Avenue, he started a beginner's minyan for Jews with no background. And there's already many people coming. And he was sure he wanted to give the Rebbe nachas. He's waiting for the Rebbe to smile, and the Rebbe makes like he didn't hear. And he knows he's in trouble. He tells the story. And he says again, I have a minyan for Jews that have no background. And then the Rebbe tells him, tell them that there are Bnei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. What kind of a business Jew no background? Every Yid. Doesn't matter who he is. Doesn't matter where he's coming from. Ahediyat and Ashafal, says the Rambam. Objectively, that's who he is. But that's not who he is. He's Bnei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Do we have ever any raya that repeated, like Moshe Rabbeinu, Be'etzam hayom hazeh, Hitzi Hashem es Ami Bnei Tzivos Yisrael Be'ez Mitzrayim Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu takes out Bnei Yisrael and he calls them Tzivos Hashem, the army of Hashem. How many times have we heard, since we're little kids, that we're Tzivos Hashem, we're the army of Hashem? Medaber b'sheva Chavele, explains the Rebbe, why does a Chacham speak about the praiseworthiness of Chavele? Because ultimately, that's what lifts him up. Unfortunately, there are some people that call their kids wilde chayes. What do you want from your kid? If you call them a wild animal, what do you expect them to grow up into? Into a dignified human being. Medaber b'sheva Chavele means not chas v'shalom to do lashon hara and to point out the imperfections in Chavele. Medaber b'sheva Chavele. So what's a Chabad house? How do we have to look at a Yid? You know, here in Thailand, we have a lot of complaints against us. What are the complaints? Complaints are that the expectation that Chabad houses for travelers in general, the first one was Eir Menachem, to the Shleishim of Gimel Tammuz. First time this concept existed. It's a problem. Now somebody goes to Oklahoma, and he comes Friday night, and he goes to the synagogue. There is a minyan in the Chabad house, maybe there isn't. And he expects, where's the Sudat Shabbat? Where's the Kiddush? No, we have a Kiddush only Shabbos day. Where do you get it Friday night? He says, Atem bet Chabad atem? You think you have a Chabad house? What? You have a Chabad? Atem bet Chabad atem? He looks at him, I don't understand. How many Chabad houses in America have a Friday night dinner where you can come in without a reservation, without a thing? The Shliach will take few people home. Atem bet Chabad atem? Takid. What do you mean? The Thailand! Thousands of people. Last Friday night we had 7,000 people to all the Bati Chabad. Yes, Friday night we're more than 7,000. This Pashas B'Shalach. These are numbers that we write to the Rebbe as a duch. So it's not press numbers, duch numbers, as I say, real numbers. But then on the other hand, you'll come to another place, and there'll be something else. What is the criteria? What do you know? When you go in, one thing you know, you get in a 7-Eleven, right? What do you know there's going to be a Slurpee. If it's kosher or not kosher, you don't know, but you know that's a criteria. You know what's a criteria in Kohl's? There are some things you're going to find in every Kohl's. What are you going to find in every single Chabad house in the world? Some have schools, some don't have schools. Some have a Shabbos minyan, some don't. I have a brother who's a Talmud Chacham of great caliber, you know him. My brother's Almanar, doesn't have a minyan. Most Shabbos doesn't have a minyan. In California is saving Jews from assimilation, from internet. Doesn't have a minyan. Not every Chabad has a minyan. Some daven in the local shul. What is the common denominator by every single Chabad house and by every single Lubavitcher Chosid? And every Yid is a shliach of this generation of what needs to be the way we look at every single Yid in our generation. The criteria of a Chabad house is a place you come in and a Yid knows he's going to be looked at not like a head for shofel. They're not going to judge him what he's wearing. They're not going to judge him what he's saying. They're not going to judge him where he came from, what he knows. They're going to judge him by one criteria. By what the Harambam says, Bnei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. They're not Jews with no background. They're Jews that come from Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Ha'am tzivos Hashem shehitzim mi'ez Mitzrayim b'keach gadol v'yad chazaka. The army of Hashem. And as the Rebbe says in the Maimorim of Basi Legani in these days, that the army of Hashem is entrusted with a final mission to bring Mashiach. And for that mission we have the Eitzer, we're given that treasure that has never ever been revealed before, that nobody could ever imagine. No eye has ever seen it. And Mashlich Chayav Mineged, the king puts himself in the front lines. And Rahmanu Litzlan, we saw that Bepeil now, a few weeks ago. The king, the Mishaleach, the Shliach who goes, K'meisek HaMishaleach. We saw it in Mumbai, we saw it in Dubai, Rahmanu Litzlan, we saw it in Bandai. Shlucha Shalom K'meisek. We read in the Maimorim of Basi Legani, Mashlich Chayav Mineged, the Rebbe says serious business. But the Rebbe also tells us our generation we're not built for it. We're Mekadshe Shmecha by living as Yidden. V'shimcha HaGodol VaHakodish Aleinu Kolosos, with our march, with our niggin, with an excitement. Because V'yismechu V'cha Kol Yisrael Mekadshe Shmecha, Kiddush Hashem has to be to live the way the Eibishter wants us to live. And it starts with, first of all, viewing each other and ourselves the way that Rambam tells us to look at each other. B'nei Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov. Tzivah is Hashem, that Hashem saw it fit to invest Koyach, Godel, and Yod Chazaka to take out every single Yid from Galus. That we can definitely put it in our agenda. That we should look at every single Yid. And sometimes we say, Afal pi shechata Yisraelu, even a Yid who's a hedget and a shofal. There's a famous word by Chassidim, Afal pi shaloi chata Yisraelu, even if it's not such a big sinner, even if it doesn't look like such a big hedyot and such a big shofar, hey, he's also a ben Avraham. They should help. Meheira yigole, omeken yirotzen. We should have the parasiris. We should have the beginning of this machzer. Say that you say this v'amud hachachma. It's later sheyesh matzarishin, and in a kamayla or machasim agilei elikus, in a way that the Rebbe always, all the nevuas of the psukim, that ayin ba'ayin yirul, v'chulu, and all the other wonderful endings, but the main thing it should be here, dolam mata v'peil mamish, take it from yad.